and after some rafting with a bamboo rafting. And I
Wow.
was there. I said, Paul, look, I would love to do that. I said, would you like to do it? And Paul, of course, crazy as he was, yeah, of course I'm going to do it. And so I told the guide, my friend, so he saw the wheelchair. He said, no, 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 we cannot do that. I said, well, if he doesn't go, I'm not going. And so I don't know what was with us, but we were like so determined, I guess. He said, okay, we'll try. And so what he did, of course, the trekking, so we left the wheelchair at the guest house, right? So
Okay.
Paul had no wheelchair. So imagine that, right? Imagine the mental that you have to have. Now that I think about it, the mental that you have to have. Okay, I don't care. All right, and just left the wheelchair. And so they rented. He paid a little bit more, and there was a motorbike, like a motocross, and so they were able
Okay.
to do the trekking, right? And so he went to the trekking, and basically, so I went. We went to a trekking, and after he had that, and after he had a mule, and after with a mule, the guy stopped, and I said, Paul, what's going on? He said, oh, I think he wants more money. And so he talked to the guide, and the guide didn't agree. And so we had some people from Germany, we have some other people with us, right? It was kind of a tourist thing, but kind of not hardcore, but like, not like touristy in a way that you put your butt in a car and you just, you have to be more physical, right? And so
Sure.
so he said, no, we don't want to pay the guy. And so he had, I remember, those big military belts. You see those green belts that are very thick that you put around and they are green. And so
Hmm.
he put his butt on it and we cut up some bamboo. And with the camera, when to hold the camera. So we unbuttoned that, and this was how we hang him literally. Thanks God he was light. Paul was like, I'm telling you, like Jesus, he was pretty light.
Welcome to the Where Have You Been podcast. I'm your host, Bill Ream, and each week on the pod, I have conversations with incredible guests from all walks of life. Expect to hear funny, crazy, emotional, life-changing, and even sometimes life-threatening stories and experiences that will entertain and inspire you. As always, I appreciate your likes, subscriptions, ratings, and reviews wherever you are listening. It doesn't sound like much, but it truly helps the pod get to the ears of more people who may enjoy it. And check out the website, whybpodcast.com, for links to the socials where you can find pictures from the guests and their stories, and also buy merch if you're so inclined. Now let's get to this week's episode. Thank you for being here. Welcome into another episode of the Where Have You Been podcast. And just like every week, get ready for another fantastic guest. This week, as always, I'm going to let them introduce themselves. So without further ado, we have my friend Alan. And Alan, who are you?
Hi, Bill. Who am I? Okay, well, basically, as you can hear, I'm not really from the US, right? So I was born and raised in south of France, and I came to the US to become a chiropractor. So I guess I'm a chiropractic physician for like 29 years now, and I created my own techniques and got intrigued with lots of things, and especially the mind. So I'm also a mind-body expert. So that's basically who I am in few words, right? And what I do.
Excellent. And so where are you? Where are you now? Where do you live now?
Well, I'm in Kansas City, Missouri, right, USA, right. I've been living there since 1993. I came to study chiropractic, and ending up first I was scheduled basically. I think it would be interesting to for your audience, like how come I end up in America, right? Because what the heck? And so basically, I used to live on my boat, a sailing boat in south of France, and I used to rent boat to have a business, boat rental business, basically. And so I was working like 6-7 months a year, and the rest of the time I was either on my boat sailing the Mediterranean Sea, or just getting a airfare ticket and going to warm country, right? Like the South Hemisphere, because I was basically Bill a sun chaser in a way, right? I didn't know what winter was like for almost a decade, right? And so, and
Wow.
after, so yeah, so basically I was doing this. I did that for, I mean, I don't remember, probably 8 years or something like that. And after I had a calling, I saw myself helping people, and so I said, what the heck is happening here? They used to call me the gypsy. I used to have long hair, an earring, and party all the time. And actually, ironically, the area where I live, it's where, I don't know if you know the Gypsy King. It's a band that
Yeah.
yeah, they're from south of France, where I used to live, from Arles. So they're actually not even from Spain, even though they're speaking Spanish. And so it's a very, it's called La Camargue, which is basically, imagine like a swamp, like Florida. No alligators, but we do have a pink flamingo. And you've got like wild white horses, from Camargue. And you've got
Wow.
also black bulls that are living free. It's like a you will call that a reservation, for animals. And so there's lots
Yeah.
of birds that come, to transit into Camargue and things like that. It's a beautiful area. It's very wild. And even though it's in south of France, it's not like the French Riviera, right? What we call La Côte d'Azur, which is very more hype and not big beaches and stuff like that. So here you've got dunes, and you can. I remember before the season, we used to bring the car, on the beach and make fire and eat our fresh sardines and and drink the sangria. And that actually I make a very good sangria beer. It's a family
All right.
tradition. Yeah, and so I know I put cognac in it. That's how good it is, right? And so
Mm.
anyway, so we used to do that before the season, like which basically when it start to the tourists are coming in south of France, like around May or the mid-April, right? And so it was a very free area. And so yeah, you saw me. Like, because we talked before, right? And so I
Hmm.
don't have the same look now. I don't have the long hair and
Right.
everything, but I
You
still have
clean
the
up. You
spirit
clean up well,
somewhere.
though. Yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you. But I still have the spirit, for sure. And so I was like, what the heck I'm going to do with this, right? And because out of the blue, there was nobody of my family that was involved with healing and things like that. So there was no doctor, no nurses, not even massage therapists. And so I started to say, to talk to my clients, right? And I
And
said,
so you at that time, were you already doing chiropractic work?
no, I was, like I
So
said, I
just the
was my,
boats. That's all you were doing. Just the
that's
boats.
it. Yeah, the boat was my
And
dream, right?
wow.
Yeah.
So it just sort of
So,
happened.
well, that's interesting. Yeah, it happened out of the blue. It's like a calling. That's the best way I can describe it, right? And so
Sure.
it's kind of somebody give you like your mission in life, and you know that it's your mission in life. There's no doubt in your mind, and you know that you have to take action, and
Yeah.
you know that you cannot not take action.
Yeah.
And it's a blessing because, I mean, but you have to understand, in my mind, I had nothing to do with that, I mean, I never thought about being involved with any kind of healing and things like that. So, in a way, it was kind of shocking, but in a way, very intriguing, right? And very like an adventure, because adventure has been the theme of my life, especially at my early age, right? And so for me, that's what I wanted. I just wanted to live an adventure. For me, like freedom was outside, right? And I think, to be honest with you, I needed freedom because my dad was a very negative and controlling person, right? And so
Oh.
he got so negative. When people are negative and controlling, it affects themselves first. So he got sick. Of course, it affects the other people around, the loved one, and all that. But I have to say that this guy really. He was puking out his life, like basically, because every meal he was, I'm sorry to use that vocabulary, but that's really what happened. And he was puking
Hmm.
life. And so he got really sick. And after he was on disability at 40 years old. And
Oh my gosh.
I never came back from it. Right. And so, and again, the controlling aspect, when you've got somebody that you have to justify everything you do in your life. And I've always been a free spirit. So that was not very compatible. Right. My sister was different, right. In a way that she was more, I wouldn't say, yeah, but probably more compliant, than I was. And
Mm-hmm.
so basically I was more rebellious. And so what is the symbol? The symbol of freedom is a boat, right? I mean, you are in harmony
Yeah.
with nature. You use the power of nature to go to one place to another. So retrospectively, I can see why, I wanted that. And my mom also always wanted to have a boat, right? And my dad never allowed her to have one. And so there was like several factors that make me decide to have a boat. And so, in order to have a boat, well, you have to make money, right? and so,
Yeah.
and so I started to look. So I graduated first. I had an electronic degree, right? And so I did graduate from that, and right away I wanted to work in a different countries, right? You know what I say about traveling? It's like traveling. It's like when you get the virus of traveling, and when you got it, there's no cure for it. That's for life.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
see what
But
I mean?
you don't want a cure for that.
Yeah. On top of that, it's like a good friendly virus, right? That you want to keep,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, totally agree with that. And so basically, I said, okay, well, I can make more money traveling for a company, right? And for as an employee, right? And still discover the world, right? And for me, it was the best of both worlds. And sure enough, when you've got the power of intention, it's a crazy thing. And it took me only a few months, and I got hired by a company in Paris. So here's one of my first travel. I went to Paris actually, and I spent like probably 5 or 6 months before being deployed, not military, right? But the first country was Gabon, which is in Black Africa, or Gabon, you say probably. It's like by the equator. And I went there and I spent 3 or 4 months down there. And so that was good because I was getting paid more, right? And quite a bit of money actually. And so it was good for my project to get a boat. And at the same time, we did all the coast of Gabon, right? So we were by the Atlantic Ocean right there and by the equator. And so that was an adventure by itself. And I was like 21 years old. So imagine I was like the youngest of the company, youngest
Mhm.
hire in the company. And here we go. I'm with another guy in Africa, and we are just working there. And we did all the coast because they had no phone. The phone was not installed. So you've got the
Mhm.
big parabol, right? And after you've got a little bitty things on the ground, and that's what I was working on. It's like on the transmission, and after there was like fiber optic or other things going everywhere, coming out of the parabol, to make sure that the phone will work. So we were sleeping in the center, like there was no bed, but we were sleeping on the floor, and we went to Chumbanga. That was the name, Chumbanga. That was a south, and it's like a national reserve, and that's where the president of Gabon was hunting there. So you
Oh
had
wow.
buffalo, you had elephant. So we had a little bit like a Suzuki, that four-wheel drive
Mhm.
Suzuki.
Yeah.
I was there. It's tiny four-wheel drive. And sure enough, we were like riding the Suzuki and taking picture and going after the buffalo and all that. So can you imagine 21 years old? I'm like, what the heck? This is for free. I will have done it, Bill, for sure.
Yeah, and they're paying you.
Yes,
Yeah.
and good money.
Yeah.
Because
So let's take a quick pause from that if you don't mind, real quick, because one thing
of
I like to do
course,
at the beginning before we get too deep in the weeds, so to speak, I want to make sure
yes,
people know where to find you because I know, again, just being real, I know a lot of people, time restraints or whatever, they don't listen to the whole
sure, of
episode
course.
sometimes, and so I just want to mention, so you do have not just your own practice, you have your own website with your own program, and can you tell people about that real quick before we jump back into the stories?
Yeah, and after we can describe that in the story how it happened. But
Yes,
basically,
yeah, I definitely want to jump back into it.
yeah, they called me the mind clearing doctor, right? And so basically, I'm well known to. I just, I simply, to put it very simply, I try to find solution for my problems, right? And so I had like a big health issue and have some other issue. I mean, everything crumbled in my life, and I had to study the mind-body connection, right? And so I started to study the mind, and what I found out is amazing. How our mind can impact our health, our relationship, and our prosperity, right? And so I found a way to reprogram a hidden part of our mind that we call the subconscious mind. And when we can reprogram your subconscious mind, you can totally change your life at all different levels. You can heal, you can transform yourself and you can grow like never before. And so I've been blessed to be able to discover that. And so I'm teaching people how to use mind clearing. It's a system. So you've got mind clearing basic, you've got body clearing, which is by clearing the mind, you can taking care of pain and symptom and inflammation in the body. And after for the goal and success clearing, it's like when you want to make sure that you use all your mind, 100% of your mind power to reach your goal and be successful in life. And so I've got a website. It's called themindclearing.com. You can go to the website and if you're interested, if you want to get treatment, if there's any negative emotion or negative thought or pattern that you had, and that that you say, why I'm sabotaging myself all the time, why I'm attracting the same thing, is because there's a program, a negative programming in the subconscious mind, and mind clearing will delete that program, download a new program, and create what you want in your life. That's the 3 step of mind clearing. So if you go there and you come from Bill, you say, oh, you know what, I heard about you and at Bill's podcast, where you get 20% off of treatment, right? It takes 1 hour. You will have a treatment with me. And if you want to, because you can learn it for yourself and to help yourself, but also your loved one, you will get, if you take the package mind clearing basic and the goal and success clearing and body clearing, you'll get 50% off. That's about it.
Wow.
So you want to contact me, you go to themindclearing.com, you press on contact, there's a form that will show up, or you got my email and you write what you want to write, right?
Yeah. Excellent. That's fantastic. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah. It's quite a path actually to get there. We will have fought. I will have never fought like the way my life started, like basically, working in a different foreign country to get a boat. And now where am I? It's just crazy. Life is that's why it's so wonderful, because you never know what's going to happen, right? It's like an adventure. I feel definitely.
As long as you let it happen and maybe even take steps to try to make it happen. Otherwise, it won't. But
and I truly feel that I had 3 lives. 3 lives already. I really feel that.
Do you have socials? Are you on Instagram, Facebook, anything?
Yeah, I'm on YouTube for sure.
You do?
Facebook, yes. I'm just working at it, because actually yesterday something amazing happened. I was able to improve that technique also dramatically, even more after 3 years. So that's what get my juice going, that creativity that I think it's so important, right? To keep our spontaneity, our passion, our joie de vivre, like we say in France. That we don't get into a routine, right? And I'm sure, Bill, lots of people wants to travel because, sometimes they are too much in a routine, right? And they feel that, okay, they're living their life, but they want to have more like adventure. They want to have more spontaneity. They want to put themselves kind of a bit in danger when you travel, right? Because it's an environment that you don't know. Usually it's a culture that you don't know. So just see something different to stimulate your mind, right? And so I think that's why lots of people are traveling. What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think it's a great, it can be great therapy also.
Yeah.
But, and one thing I usually ask people, but I think we can skip it, because I usually ask, was travel a part of your life when you were younger? But it sounds like it really wasn't. You already kind of stated that, but it was something that you wanted to do. So
yeah. It was like, that was again something right? That that you're going to be traveling, right? Because I remember, some, here's the thing, because what I've seen in my family, right, talking about, the routine and all that, I didn't want Bill to have a life like that. No way. I wanted, because what I've seen in my family, it's like everything is already, what's going to happen next. So you marry, you're going to have kids. I'm married and I've got kids. I'm not saying it's good or bad, right? But after they're going to stay in the same place, and after they're going to do the same thing, they're going to retire, and they're going to, in France, we do have lucky enough 2 month paid vacation, right? But you're going to go to the same place in vacation. You're like on a cocoon. I call that a cocoon life, right? Where, I didn't want this kind of life. I read a book, I remember, It's a French book, and basically that was like a book of somebody who was she was a woman and was born, and all the people were working at the same factory. So the mom was working at the same factory, in the 1900 during like the industrial revolution. And so they were working at the factory. The dad was working at the factory. So they've got that daughter, and of course she's going to work in the factory, have marry somebody, work at the factory, have a baby, and so on and so forth. I said, this is not a life for me. And when I saw my family, that it was so predictable, you could tell what happened. For me, I
Mhm.
wanted more. I had bigger dreams, I guess. I don't know what it was, but I have some fire inside of me that, couldn't stay. You never felt that really I belonged to a specific place either, right? Because
Mhm.
yeah, I was in France, but I had a bigger picture. I had the world as a picture, not a town, not a specific location, and stay there for the rest of my life. And so that's
That's
how the
that's really great
juice,
because
the
that does not
passion of
happen.
traveling. Yeah,
There are a lot of people when you're born into that bubble, and
I
that's
know.
where you've lived and you were raised and whatever, and it took. So I sort of had a similar situation. My family
I see.
traveled a little bit when I was younger, but it really small. I lived in a small town in Western New York, and if I hadn't, met somebody who introduced me to travel, I don't know that it ever would have really been a thing for me. But so unlike you, I didn't have the passion for it to begin with, but once I got it, man, it's a it's a major passion, and it's part of my life that it's part of me now. So, but yeah, so I want to say this is where I usually say, "Where have you been?" Let's, if you don't mind, unless there's anything else you wanted to say, let's go back to South Africa. That's I'm really interested to hear what happens here.
It was like, you mean in Gabon, right? Yeah, so
Mhm.
it basically is the center of Africa, right? It's by the equator line. So, and yeah, so I was like walking, like, so of course I wanted a boat, right? The symbolism for me was clear. And so I just, we went to, talk about story, man. There's some story right there. It's just coming back to me. That's funny, when you start to talk like this. And so I imagine 21 years old, right? I'm like a baby in a way, right? And I go with another guy, and we're like in charge to install all that phone things, along the coast, right? And so
Mhm.
I always remember when I landed in Libreville, which is the capital, right? And there was like no, there was like stairs, that you put, and it was so hard. I remember I had that suitcase, and it was so slippery because it hit you like a wave, at the equator line, man. It was so humid, I say, okay, well, I guess I'm not in south of France anymore, or in Paris for sure. And working with somebody and living with that person all the time, sometimes it can be challenging. Depends the personality of the person, but we got along pretty well. And so we had some four-wheel drive that the company bought, right? And so the guy had more experience than I did, so we were doing some stuff. For example, for the light, we want to make sure that you make a hole like that. If we go underwater, after the water can drain out, right? And after, if you turn on the light, it's not gonna, they're still gonna be working. So we made some few arrangements with. I remember it was a Nissan Patrol, and the long version, right? They were just brand new, actually. The company bought that, and here we go. We started to put all our electronic equipment and all that, and drive, drive. And when you drive there, there's no. For a while, when you are in the capital, of course, you've got asphalt and things like that. But after, we call that in France laterite. So it's that red, red, how do you call that? That red,
Almost like a clay.
yeah, that's it. And so you drive like, and you've got what we call, I don't know how you say that in English, it's called grumier. So you've got those huge truck with those big trunk of wood, right? I mean, imagine like in the equatorial forest, how big the trees are. And they're just coming out of the blue. Sometimes you just go up. And I remember one time, I was driving and we were going up, and we were like face to face with Vus Grumier like that. I had to avoid it because there was not room enough for both of us. So I had to go on the side and slide with a four-wheel drive to avoid it. Otherwise, we'll have crashed into each other. And I'm telling you, if you crash in the middle of a jungle, well, there's no ER, there's no
Yeah.
there's no services that can. You done, man, you done. That was quite dangerous when I think about it. So that was no
Wow.
joke for that. And after, so to go to the destination where we were going, there was like some kind of security things, right? And so they were like, so they were putting some chain, to block the road. And they were, so military, right? Not even police, military, right? And so they were asking some question. I remember one of my, I took, actually, I had like a very good a camera, and I took some picture because it was unique. There were some Asian people growing rice in Black Africa. I was like, what the heck is going on here? And so
Wow.
I took some picture, and after we went to that, I don't know you call that, but when a checkout point, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And so they stopped us.
Checkpoint.
I
Yeah.
remember there was one member of the party because he had a kind of a four-wheel drive with a Gabon National Party. And he asked, why did you take picture and blah, blah, blah. I said, well, I don't know. I thought it was unusual. And since I had a beautiful camera, we didn't know what they will do with the camera. My friend said, oh, yeah, I'm the one who took the picture. So they opened his camera and pull the film out. And so, of course, all the pictures were destroyed. But they were not because they were in my camera. So, like, some story like this, like you
So
kind
they
of,
took the
you
film out of
don't.
the wrong camera?
Yes, they did because my friend said
That's
he was the
great.
one who took the picture.
Nice. Well done.
And so we went on, and after coming like to Chambunga, which was like in the south of Gabon, that was like, I mean, you have to imagine like a big beach and there's nothing, like nobody, nothing. I cannot tell you that. And you see, and they are not clean. So you've got, things on the beach, you've got piece of wood, you've got all that. And but it was like a city. So we met some people, that because in Gabon they speak French, right? And so there was some unusual people. You don't know where they are coming from, probably some people who are, to be honest, to try to escape the law, maybe in France or
Mm.
some other places. And anyway, that's what we heard about them. But yeah, so you've got like lots of people with unusual personality, to say the least, and you just communicate with them, and they have been there for sometimes 5, 10 years, and usually they drink pretty hard, to be honest with you. And so we were there, and we started to work, right? And so I remember just it was so remote that just only to go to the place where the phone equipment was, right, and we had to take like I don't know how to call that. It's like I'm sorry about my English, because it's so unusual for me. But it's like a barge or something. So you put the car there, and somebody manually will just bring you to the other side of a lagoon. I guess I don't know. It was like salt water. And so
Okay.
you have to cross that way, right? And so there was like an engine, I think, that was doing it. And so we were there in the middle of nowhere. And so I was ecstatic. I loved it. On top of that, we were
Mm-hmm.
sleeping, on the floor. I mean, we had some mattress and some inflating mattress and things like that. But
Mm-hmm.
we were
Yeah.
saving a lot of money because we were getting paid to live in a good hotel. And so when we're not using the hotel, that was cash in our pockets, right? So
Oh,
in the same time,
nice.
we were making a lot of money. Yes.
Yeah. You're
And at the
getting close to
same
buying
time,
a
that
boat
was the
pretty
life
quick.
that I wanted. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
I said, you're getting close to buying a boat pretty quick.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, actually, he did. And so basically that was it. And so we did several things, and I remember getting stuck because like the engine of a barge, to bring us from one side of a lagoon to another one or river, I don't know you call that, was broken. So we spent a week doing nothing because they couldn't fix it. So it took a week
Oh,
to get the part. I mean, that was crazy. And so we were like, okay, well, I guess we're on vacation, And so we enjoyed the people around. We enjoyed the beach. And yeah, it was quite an adventure. But I have to say the peak on adventure in Gabon is when we started to get into small airplane to go to different destinations. And so one of the first one that happened, my first experience, I was by myself with a pilot, and those were not professional pilots. They were like teachers, people like that who wanted to have more hours, right? And so, the company will pay them like that. They will be able to have more hours and things like that. And so I
Hmm.
remember I had a guy who was, so we went out of Libreville, airport, no problem, right? And it was like a one engine things, tiny things. And so we just went to land, I don't remember the destination. Where was it? But it was like in the middle of the country. It was not by the ocean that time. And so we're about to land. He told me, you see, like there's three lights. And so there's a green light on top, and there's two other lights, for the rear, like the rear wheel, right? And they're supposed to turn green, right? When you put them out. And they didn't. So the front one didn't turn green. So he looked at me, and so he said, okay, can you hold on? Because he was smoking pipe, like his pipe. He was smoking his pipe. So he said, can you hold on my pipe? And he started to jerk the airplane like crazy. And boom, finally, we had that green light turning on. I said, okay, that's good to know. And we landed, no problem. No problem. We
Oh
landed,
man.
and everything was okay. But after, what was crazy, Bill, that we took the same plane, and after we were like a full crew, we were like three other people, right? It was, I remember the name of the plane is a Saratoga. And so we, again, we just go out to Port-Gentil, which is another city, right? And so I told the guy, I took that plane, and it's funny. I mean, I literally tell him it's funny because that front wheel didn't want to. We didn't know if it was not locked or out. But so the pilot literally told me, "Oh, I'm going to try it," and sure enough, it was not locked again. So we went back, and they called all the fire department and all that. They were looking at us with monocular. They say, "Oh yeah, the wheel is out, but we don't know if it's locked." So I
No.
started to get mad because I said, "What the heck? The same thing. They didn't check it. And
Right? You should
so
have fixed it.
anyway, yes, and you're in the middle of the air in a small airplane, and you see the fire department ready for the worst, right? You say, "Gosh, that's ridiculous." Anyway, so we landed. So he did a good landing, by the way. He just landed on the rear, and at the end, boom, he put like the nose down, and thankfully that wheel was locked.
Oh
So
my gosh.
yeah, I'm telling you, that was like woo.
Yeah. Wow.
And and to finish it up with the airplane, we were after in the jungle, but it was like by the ocean, and we were waiting for a plane, and we received, because the phone was working, we received a phone call, and they say, well, the plane has been delayed, actually it's not going to come. I said, what happened? So remember the first pilot, we had the pipe and told me just
Yes.
to hold the pipe and was checking the things. Well, this guy was in Tahiti, which is in the Indian Ocean, right? Pacific
Hmm.
Ocean. I'm sorry, and it's
Hmm.
uh, it's it's almost like Hawaii, for people who don't know, Tahiti and
Yeah.
or Bora Bora. People, American know Bora Bora, so it's very
Yeah.
close to Bora Bora. And so he was like the director of the airport there, like the tiny airport. And this I didn't know. And they had, they do some visit. It's called Visit Veritas. And so basically they inspect all the airplane and put take some stuff out, put it back together. And so that plane, I just had that visit done, right? And so the guy was in the plane, and he was with some people, and they were to land to get, I don't remember where, and he crashed, and they all died.
Oh my gosh.
I know. I mean, Africa was no joke. I'm telling you, that was no joke. Yeah, and probably it was like 2 weeks after I traveled with him. Right, it was a different
Wow.
airplane, because I asked, "Is it the same freaking airplane?" Right? No,
Right.
it yeah, because that would have been too much. And he said they
Yeah.
just had the visit, and sometimes when they do visit, sometimes if they don't put the plane back together, it can happen, right? And because
Oh,
he
that's
was a
terrible.
very experienced pilot, right? I mean, he was like in Tahiti, and he was like the director of the airport and all that. And he said that he just crashed, and there's nothing he could do, right? It's almost like a engine failure that he had, that he
Oh,
experienced.
that's too bad.
I know. So
Yeah.
that was really my first big trip. Was definitely Gabon,
So
and yes, lots of story to talk about.
was that trip specifically, was that enough for you to get enough money for your first boat, or did you
Not
travel
yet.
more for work before?
I had to. I had to. And so
Yeah.
I went, I spent maybe 4 or 5 months in Iraq. I'm sorry, 4 or 5 months in Paris, waiting to have another assignment. At that time, I was living in Grenoble, which is by the Alps, the big mountain that we got in
Hmm.
France. And
Yeah.
so I was, traveling by train, and all that. That was quite an adventure every weekend because my girlfriend was in Grenoble, right? And so, yeah, so after I went to Iraq, and so Iraq, it was at that time that there was the war between Iran and Iraq. So
Okay.
before American people went there, right? And so it was Saddam Hussein, of course, still, right? That's why they give him all his money to fight Iran, basically, right? And so France and America, they were funding him. So anyway,
So
I
this was
went
probably
there.
what, the early 1980s?
Yes, because
Okay.
I was born in 1962, and so I was like probably 22,
So maybe mid
23.
80s. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And so we were working like it was different. It was in Baghdad, really. We were supposed to be in Baghdad, and this, we work on the big building about communication and all that, to put it very simply. And so I went there, and we had like people have been there for a long time, so they were a house that they rented, so it was like very easy, I had my room and all that, and so we were working hard, and so after we had to party a little bit, right? I mean, 22, 23 years old. And so there was like although it's an Arabic country and Muslim country, it was very liberal. And there was like lots of Filipinos there. And they had like, bar and things like that. And so we went to party. But before I go there, they sent me, so we had a car and they sent me to Mosul. And Mosul, it's like by the desert, it's by the north of the country. It's called the Kurd country, right? Kurdistan, almost now probably, and it's
Hmm.
where I don't know if you remember, but Saddam Hussein put gas all those people later on, right? And so
Mm.
very different ethnicity and all that. So I was driving like probably a day or a day and a half there. I don't remember. I was by myself. Had to do something, and that was totally different vibe for Baghdad, which is like basically like all the big cities. All the big city looks like the same in a way, lots of traffic and all that. But here there was totally different, and here in Muslim country they don't drink, right? I mean, they are supposed not to drink. They don't have bar, so you've got
Mm.
hookahs, right? I say, oh, okay, I'm going to go and
Yeah.
try to
I've heard of that.
socialize, right?
Hmm.
And so they had that big Turkish hookah that you've got maybe 5 or 6. I mean, a giant. Imagine a giant hookah, right? And they've
Hmm.
got 5, 6, maybe more pipe. And I went, so I just explained to the guy, with my broken English at the time, and I started to inhale, and I was coughing like crazy. All the old people look at me and laugh like crazy. It was so strong, and I was a smoker at the time. On top of that, but man, I don't know what tobacco they put on it, but that was no joke, right? And so anyway, and after I went to another place, and they had the Kalashnikov on the table, right? I mean, you could tell that those people were different. You could tell that they were like not Iraqis, right? They were like they had their own ethnicity, right? And I spent only one day there, and so I didn't have really quite interaction, and quite frankly, I worked like crazy. So after I
Yeah.
went back, and on my way back, the car died on me.
Oh
Literally, stopped
no.
working.
And you're by
No more
yourself?
oil in. Yes, no more oil in the engine. And so I said, I was in the middle of a desert. So I saw a town like far away. I said, I don't care. I'm just gonna drive there. What I'm gonna do? There's nobody there. And thanks God it was daylight. And I was not too far from Baghdad, but still. So I went. Ironically, the car died just in front of a cemetery. I was like, what?
Oh no. Hopefully
So I
it's
said,
not
what
an
I'm gonna
omen.
do? Yeah, I know. That was crazy, man. And so I said, what I'm gonna do? And so I said, well, I need to go to Baghdad. So I started to hitchhike. And there's lots of people from Turkey that they
Uh-huh.
were like driving big truck, and with all those decoration on the truck. I mean, that was like kind of crazy. So I stopped to do hitchhiking, and he saw me by myself, even though it was a city, but there was not lots of people, right? And so it was not a city, it was like a tiny, not even village, right? Anyway, so he stopped, and I said, because he was not even speaking English, so we understood each other in a way. I said, that basically I told him, can you bring me to Baghdad? I will pay you, right? I showed him some money. I will pay you, and can you give me a ride? And he said yes. But I said, I need to have all my equipment. So when first he saw the equipment, he said no. I said, no, I'll give you money and all that. He said okay. So I took all the equipment out of a truck, right, and locked the door and left. And after, I remember when we were close to Baghdad, he was showing his watch and saying that he has to stop. And I think maybe there's a certain amount of hours that we have to do. I said, no,
Yeah.
no, please bring me
Yeah.
to the villa that we rented. And he sure did. And so I put all the equipment in the villa, right? Because we're talking about like hundreds of thousands of dollars, of
Yeah.
equipment. That's
Sure.
lots of money, right? So I was thinking about that first. And sure enough, I went to my bedroom, and I probably give him, like, intentionally, 1 month of his salary easily,
Wow.
and in cash. Yeah, because look at the
He's
equipment, right?
yeah.
The
Yeah.
amount, and you know what I'm saying that because after we jump on another car to go, it was probably 2 hours away, right, or 2 hours and a half. We went, and when we came, the car was like, no, it was destroyed. The glass were
Oh
broken.
no.
Yes.
Wow.
So imagine if the equipment. So that guy saves a ton of money. I remember my boss said, "Why you give him so much money?" I said, "Are you kidding me?" With this guy, so first of all, he didn't want. He gave me a ride. Number one, and number two, we had all the equipment, all that, and if we have broken into, we have lost hundred of thousands of dollars. And after he said nothing because yeah,
You saved your boss money.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly, and he deserved it because he had a good heart. And I believe,
Yeah.
when people get a good heart and they do that, from the bottom of their heart, they need to be rewarded.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So yeah, that was quite a story, man. And so now that I remember all that, and basically, so to finish the story, because now this is the grand finale. That's the grand
Okay.
finale of Iraq. So that's quite a story. So one night we went with my friend because we were like, maybe he was like 1 year older than me, right? His name was Pascal. He was a French guy too, from Brittany, from the north of France. And so basically we went out and we were drunk, Anna was, but I was not driving, right? And so we started, and it doesn't rain a lot in Baghdad, I guarantee you that. And for one time we had some rain, and you have to imagine that they've got like two lines, sometimes three lines, going one way. And after, you've got some concrete that separate the other way, right? Like an
Uh-huh.
interstate in
Sure.
America, but with a big concrete in between and some what we call a U-turn, right? So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes
Mm-hmm.
it's spaced out, and you can make a U-turn if you want. And what we end up, he was driving and he lost control. We went up to the concrete wall, and we hit a car, and we took us sideways like that. You will have thought that we were on the right side, like we were coming the other way, right? And
Oh
so,
my
and I
gosh.
got, yeah, so I lost consciousness. I remember from that accident, because I was on the passenger seat. I had my left leg on top of the dashboard, like just relax, living my best life. Well,
Right.
not for long. I remember seeing one light of the light of the street, because it was nighttime or probably early in the morning. I don't remember. And the next things I remember, Pascal pulled me out of the car, and the pain on my leg, right? So I had an open fracture on my left femur, right? And
Oh my
so
gosh.
yeah, I know, that's crazy. When I think about my life sometimes. And so they brought me out, and they put me in a ambulance, right? And I went there, and after, I was out of it, to be honest. But what they told me that they saw cat behind underneath my bed, and there was like people all shot because of the war. So I don't know what kind of hospital I ending up, but it was hot, right? And so the guy, remember, the surgeon said, well, you know what? It's going to take 2 or 3 days to operate in the hospital. But if you come to my private clinic, we can operate him, Of course, he wanted to make some more money, right? But
Yeah.
and so the company said, okay, yes, we will pay for it, no problem. And so I did have the surgery done, and they put a rod, at the center of my femur, and my leg was okay, right? And I remember there was after I had the surgery, there was like two guys that came, two Iraqis that came, and they say, oh, they want. So my friend told me in French, okay, they want you to sign a paper because the other guy, it's the brother of the other guy, and I guess the other guy was even drunker than we are, and so he thought that he hit us, right? And so that saved my butt of my friend, because there was a problem, like a British guy that was working for another company but the same field, if you want. He was going back to the airport, right? And what happened, he just lost control and he had an accident. And so they took his passport, and he was stuck in Iraq for 1 year in order to wait for his lawsuit or whatever was involved to get out. He couldn't get out of the country. So Pascal knew about the story because we used to hang up in the British club quite often, playing darts and stuff. And
Uh-huh.
so he knew about that story. He said, please sign this, like that you release the guy, because the guy was in jail. He went to
Oh
jail
my
right away.
gosh.
I know, that's crazy. And so if you sign the paper, they're not gonna, try to see what's going on there, and I'm safe, and I don't, because he was concerned of, that they find out that he actually was driving. He's the one that went over and created the accident. And so I signed the paper. I
Okay.
remember the brother was so thankful, and he said, what's going to happen? And Pascal told me, oh, he's in jail now. He's going to get out because you signed the
Wow.
paper. And
That's
meaning that
so
I know,
incredible.
it's just crazy. And imagine I'm like 22, 23, 22 years old. I'm like, what? And so the problem, so I had to go back in plane, right? So we had lots of insurance, right? And so there was no problem for that. So there was a guy,
Mhm.
I remember, a doctor that came, and so they bring me with the ambulance. 2 or 3 days later, they bring me to the airplane. They put me in the back of the airplane, and there was a doctor that came that was paid by the company, or the insurance of the company, and he was supposed to assist me if I needed some painkiller or something like that, right? And we start to talk, and he was just coming from the big earthquake that they had in Mexico City. So that's around that time that they had the earthquake, and so we talk about
Mm.
that. And sure enough, you have to make injection because I was suffering a lot, right? I thought it was
Mm.
normal, and so after from plane to plane, the doctor released me when I went to Grenoble, and so I was done, right? And so I thought I was done, and so basically I still have lots of pain, and my girlfriend at the time got tired of me having pain, and you have to imagine at that time I was living in the fifth floor, but double floor, right? And there was no
Mm.
elevators. So
Oh
I
no.
had to move on my butt to go up and down to a backpack, just to be able to carry groceries. And when you forgot something, too bad, right? Anyways, and so, she got tired because I couldn't sleep at night. I was taking painkiller after painkiller. So she sent me we went to the hospital at Grenoble, and Grenoble is like a big there's a ski resort all over. So they are really very good with, broken bones and all that, and obviously. And what they did, they took over X-rays because my X-ray was stopping in the femur level, but they took bigger X-ray. And what happened when he put the rod was sticking out of my butt. I'm sorry to say that, but and so that's why I was in
What?
pain. So yeah, so they did a bad job. That guy was incompetent and charged you like crazy, by the way. And so they say, well, you know what, we have to reoperate. And so I said, okay, well, let's do that, right? So they just took the rod and put a smaller one. And to make a long story short, 9 months later, I was able to be really on my foot and be kind of normal in a way.
Wow.
I
That's
know,
insane.
I know. When I think about all this, it's just you brought me back, man. I mean, you really brought me back. And after that's when I
Man.
had the money. That's when. So I know it's a long answer to answer your question, but yeah, after I had enough
Yeah,
money
we're almost
because
done with the episode now, Alan, but
I
that's okay.
know
No, I'm
that's
just
just
kidding.
crazy, when I
I'm
think
just kidding.
about it. And
Yeah.
just one question, it took so long. I apologize, but I think it
No.
was it was unique, really. And so after they give me like some money if I leave the company and all that. So I had all the amount of money that I needed, right? And so
Hmm.
imagine, picture that. I've got my bank account. I'm pleased. I'm looking for a boat. So first, I mean, before I say, okay, I'm going to buy that boat because if I don't buy it now, I will never buy it. So I didn't know what I will do before because I got, they give me money to not to. I took the opportunity because they were like, um, like people let go people, right? And so I took the opportunity because they were giving some incentive, like some money
Yeah.
to
We
let
call it
go,
like a
and I had
severance
some money
package.
because of my accident. So I was able to cash in, right?
Yeah.
And so I had the money. So okay, I, I just bought my boat. So I bought a boat, and there's other stories about that, but it's going to be too long. But and I said, now what I'm going to do? So I said, well, you've got the boat, so that's good. So it was in south of France, in Camargue. So I said, well, now I need to know how to make sure that I can ride the boat. So I took some classes, and I took some classes like a second level, if you want. And I ended up, going to like with the classes, we just stop where my boat was. And so I saw a friend of mine that was working with in a boat business. I say, "Oh, Valentin, how are you doing?" I say, "Oh, I'm here. I'm just learning." He say, "Oh, that's cool." I say, "What's about?" I knew he had a boat rental business for sale the year before, and I say, "Oh, so did you sell your business?" He said, "No, no, it didn't work out with the guy." I said, "Well, wait a minute. I'm just interested." And sure enough, I bought the business from him, and that's how I ended up. Isn't it crazy?
So you go through all of that with your job, which your plan was to get enough money to buy a boat,
That's it.
and then
A boat.
all that happens. Surgeries, broken femur. You settle to get, and you leave your job, and then
Yeah.
they give you enough money to buy, and you
Yes.
went right from buying one boat to let's just buy a boat rental business. So
Yeah,
how many boats did you
because I
own
had
at
to
that
make a
point?
living, and this was my passion, because I was interested the year before. I used to work there in the summer, right? And so
Yeah,
I was interested, but I said, well, no way. And I said, what I'm going to do now, I don't know, and I seized the opportunity. I say, okay, I want to do that. This is what I love, I've got the boat business. That's perfect. And I went for it. I really
yeah,
went for it, and I knew nothing about renting boats. But fair enough. He told me that yeah, I will teach you some things because he was a mechanic too, and that was, I mean, their stories about boat rental business. I'm telling you, I can write a book about that because when you rent a car and the car doesn't work, that's okay, that's fine. You park, you make a phone call, and you're good, right? But when there's a boat that is far away and the engine doesn't start, what do you do? And there's no CB on the boat, right? Because it just depends what boat you
no,
rent. So imagine all the story that comes, and especially when the boat that you rent are not yours. So it's like some people wants to make money, right? That are usually local, so they rent their boat for like a couple of months, and like that they can pay for the insurance, can pay to make the boat better and all that. But they want to make money, so they will minimize. If there's something to change, they say, "Oh, maybe we're going to wait that I've got enough money with a boat rental business to change it." And basically, they will get 70% of what I was making. I will cash in 30%. And so that was the boat rental business that I did for 8 years, something like that.
wow. And so it was when you were doing that. That was when, sometime in the middle of all that, was when you found sort of your calling, which ended up eventually
Yeah,
bringing you
at
to the
the
United
end.
States. Yeah,
Exactly, at the end. And meanwhile, so I was working because I love the freedom. I was working only, I didn't care about making money. I didn't want to be rich. I didn't care about that. What I wanted is to travel. And so that was the perfect job for me because I was working like, for example, from April to beginning of October. And after I was free. So I will go sailing, Mediterranean Ocean. You got a month or so, and after it's become really rough. and not pleasurable. And so I will do some sailing, and I will get a South Hemisphere ticket, right? And I will save money traveling because I will spend 2 months, 2 months and a half. So you've got the cost to hit was basically the airfare, but after living there, cost nothing. I was saving money instead of living in France, but to be in a foreign country and living my best life. Isn't it crazy?
It's incredible. It's absolutely
Yeah.
incredible. So, what kind of places did you go?
So I went to the first things I went to Mauritius. Mauritius is an island, so you've got La Réunion, which is in the Indian Ocean. So if you see Madagascar, you've got the African continent. You see Madagascar. East of Madagascar, it's kind of a big island by the southeast of the African continent. And after you've got La Réunion, which is like, I will say it's like a French state, to explain it, like
Okay.
Hawaii, a little bit like Hawaii, right?
Hmm.
And so after the 90 miles away, you've got Mauritius, which is an amazing island because there's, all the big religions. You've got the white Mauritius, there are many Christian. You've got the Muslim Mauritius. You've got the Buddhist Mauritius. You've got, I didn't see any Jewish people. That's the only thing. They were not there, right? And they look like more like people from India, right? And so you bathing in that culture, right? And it's just so beautiful. And they speak some French, they speak some Creole, they speak English. I mean, they speak so many different language, right? And one of my friends was in La Réunion, and he rented a big house for me with two water reservoir, because sometimes the water wouldn't work and all that. And I really enjoy Mauritius. People are so nice, so welcoming, and I never seen like some people with so many different cultural background get along so well.
Mm, that's cool.
Yeah, that was very cool. And if you look at Mauritius, I mean, you look at the island, it's beautiful. I don't know now because there's so much tourism, but at that time, there was some tourism, but it was not, people were going for deep sea fishing, things like that. And the
Hmm.
tourism was not widespread. But now, from what I've heard, it's totally different, right? I mean, they have to make money, of course,
Sure.
I really loved it. I really loved it, and the Creole was very interesting because it's a mixture of some English, some French, and sometimes you understand some words. I remember going to some fishermen early in the morning, fishing with them, and we playing like the French game is called pétanque, which is balls. You throw. It's not like bowling, right? It's smaller balls, and you have to be close to a tiny ball, right? That you throw,
Ah, it's like
and the one.
Italian. It's like bocce ball, like Italian
Yeah,
bocce.
it's called pétanque in France,
Okay.
pétanque. And so it's big in south of France, and it's a funny game because you drink at the same time and you just tease each other. You try to deconcentrate the people, and the one who win have to pay the round at the bar and stuff like that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So that's how I met lots of people, and I met those fishermen, and after I've had Mauritius people coming to my house, and of course we party and all that. And that's where I met
Yeah.
my friend Paul. But I did quite a bit of travel with him. We were, remember, at the beach, and I don't know, our eyesight crossed each other, and I went to see him and started to talk to him. He was a French guy. He was on a wheelchair. He was with his girlfriend, and the next 2, 3 years or 4 years, I spent, I traveled with him. That's how sometimes we met people, right? I met also a guy in Mauritius that was actually a German guy, engineer. And so we get along. I say, oh, you're from Germany. If you want to come to south of France, you're welcome to stay in my boat and all that. And he came with his girlfriend, and we had lots of fun, of course, because I know so many people there. And after he said, well, why don't you come to Oktoberfest? Because he was from München. I said, of
Nice.
course I'm going to come.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it was, yeah, of course. So I came, and it's funny because Oktoberfest, they had that things that, I did never thought. First of all, it's like agriculture stuff. I didn't know that, right? You've got like some John Deere tractor, so that's really like around agriculture things, right? And so that's how it started. And after, so they party together, like as a couple, and after they party separately because you go with your coworker and you party with them. And so I went to all of them. And you
Nice.
know something? Oh my
If you're
goodness.
gonna do it, you might as well do it right.
Oh, and that's the way I was. Definitely, I could drink too, and so we had lots of fun, right? And it was very interesting. I remember after they got married, and I went to Germany for their wedding, and it was a traditional wedding with a tractor with a trailer, and they were going through the village with that Bavarian music and all that. I thought it was so cool. And
Oh,
so
that's
anyway,
cool.
that part of Germany, that's the only part that I know. But that was, I think every part in Europe that is the South, it's more entertaining. People are more relaxed. They are not like, oh, you work, work, work all the time, and that's all we do, right? So, like South of
Hmm.
France, for example, is more laid back than north of France, right? And so even northern of Italy is like close to south of France, but the South Italy is even more laid back, right? So that's how it works. So when you are south of the country in Europe, it's people are more like taking their time, more laid back, and usually more smiling, welcoming than the north, which is usually traditionally more industrial.
Yeah. I do love, I want to mention, because one of the things I talk about a lot with my guests is, when you go places, are you the type of person that, and I'm not asking this of you because I know the answer, but I ask
Yeah.
my guests if they like to kind of keep to themselves when they travel or if they like to talk to locals or anybody, other
Oh,
travelers or whatever. And clearly, I love that you are outgoing
uh,
and are the type of person that will try to make a connection with someone, even
yes.
if it's brief. Like even if you don't become lifelong friends, I'm sure it sounds like you're talkative anyway.
Yes.
But do you have any stories of those travels that are obviously you just told me about going to their wedding? They came and stayed on your boat, but anybody that you met along the way that you have some crazy stories with?
Well, my friend Paul, we went to some travel. And what I will say also, what I will advise people is just go and eat in the street. Eat with the people, the
Mm,
street food, just go.
yeah.
That's how you meet people and just be, I don't know, be yourself. And just you have to be cautious also. Of course, you don't have to do crazy things and there's bad neighborhood like everywhere. But, have that adventurous spirit, right? Just go for it. And yeah, talk to people. Even if you don't speak the same language, you'll be surprised,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
how you can communicate with hands and just be open to meet other people, right? But for me, yeah, I just wanted to have that experience, right? That's why what I didn't say, but when I was working in Black Africa, I met people who were local, right? And so when you meet people they are local and it's for work, so it's even better because you are in their daily life, like what they are doing and things like that. Also they telling you where to go, and there's also almost right away you trust them, right? Because they're doing the kind of similar job that you do, right? And so when you work with and meet the people at work that are local, it's so cool because you can really they will tell you so many different things that they want, right? So except we talk about job, but also after they talk about more their situation, sometimes politics, sometimes social, sometimes the things, they make you they invited you in their house and you try their local dish, and things like that. So that was cool. But even as a tourist, you still can go. For me, I will always go where the people are, like the common people are, because that's what
Yes.
life is for me. You see what I mean? I don't care because you can go to Hilton, to all that. That's the same everywhere. It's almost the same
Mm-hmm.
people everywhere. Maybe more darker
Mm-hmm.
skin or black or Asian or whatever, but it's still the same. You could still have that stupid continental breakfast. Who cares about that? I just want to try, what people eat. And so the street food are usually cheap on top of that. And you're on the street. And since I was going to a very good weather country in a way, so the action was in the street, while on the beach or on things like that. And when you meet people, you just, yeah, I think it's important to communicate, right? And so, like, remember we were mentioning about the cocoon, right? So get out of the cocoon, right? And see what's
Mm-hmm.
out there, and you'll be surprised. And so, in the same time, it just make you more tolerant, more open-minded, because you see, depends the culture, things are acceptable, and you learn that hey, you're not in your country, you need to comply, to what their culture required, and be respectful to those people. And when you're friendly and respectful, people will return the things, right? You're gonna attract the same things. And so that's definitely the way I've been traveling for sure.
Yeah. And you mentioned, was it Paul? Is that who you met that was in the
Yeah.
wheelchair? And you said you traveled together for a while.
Yes. So what happened? It's like after he was also in south of France. So he was in Draguignan. I was in Montpellier, and so he was like an hour and a half of driving, right? So we started to see each other, to party together and all that. And I remember, so we say, okay, Paul. And after his girlfriend, it's a long story. She went with somebody from Mauritius. I mean, that's crazy story right there, right? So when he was in Mauritius, she stayed there with people, with a guy from Mauritius, right? So he was by himself. I said, okay, all right, Paul. So,
So they
um,
split up.
yeah, they split up there. It happened in my house during a
Wow.
party. I said, what the heck? So
Oh,
I didn't feel
geez.
the best, right? You see what I mean? And so, but anyway, things happen. I think it's life, right? Life can happen, when you are traveling, it can happen, in your house, it can happen everywhere, right? Things happen. And so I said, okay, well, so we became friends really. And so I remember the first trip we decided, we said, okay, where are we going to go? And so, well, we didn't know, and South America came up, right? And so, I had a friend of mine that had some family in Venezuela, right? And so, we said, and he was a mechanic, so we said, well, you know what, we can maybe get a car and travel, in Venezuela, get a car there, fix it, and all that. So. The three of us, we left to Caracas, and in Venezuela, there's lots of national park. It's actually very beautiful. Caracas, it's kind of during the time that I went, it was like a little bit like lots of cops, right, and things like that. So you could tell that okay, let's get out of the city, right? And so we went
Mm-hmm.
to some islands, not far away from Caracas, called Calle Sombrero. So Calle means street, and Sombrero means hat, right? So I don't know what it really means. And so in order to go to those islands, so we had to basically take a boat, like the fishermen will bring them there, and we were in this island, right? And so we were living with the pelicans, we were living with frigate birds, and coconuts, and sleeping on the beach. And during the weekend, that was interesting because people from Caracas during the weekend they will come to the islands. So during the
Okay.
weekend it was busy, but during the week we were by ourselves, and we met some people from Switzerland, and things like that. I remember meeting an old woman that she was like her skin was literally like there were so many mosquito bites. It was impressive, and she was like an old woman and was living by herself in a I don't know if you can call that a house really, but like local
Wow.
things. And she was like in her 70s. And anyway, we talked to her a little bit in our broken Spanish. I can speak some Spanish because my family came from Spain 2 generations ago, from south of Spain, from Andalusia. And so my grandpa, grandma, both sides, they were from south of Spain. And so I'm a second generation French, meaning that my parents were born in France and I was born in France, right? So I know a little bit some Spanish because they were speaking Spanish in my family, right? That's maybe why also, now that I think
Nice.
about it, that I had some family members that were immigrants. And actually my grandpa, which was my role model, because he had that thirst of life, that love of life, right? And he was an immigrant. And when I look at his life and my life, because I'm an immigrant too, very parallel. Living our passion. His passion was about biking. For me, my passion is healing arts. And yeah, very similar life. Anyway,
Yeah,
so
that's
that's maybe
cool.
why also I travel and went to another country. Who knows? Who knows really?
Yeah, makes
So
sense. Absolutely.
yeah, yeah, because I realized that only like maybe 6 or 7 years ago. I say, oh, Pierrot, it's like we can have a similar path and similar attitude towards life because that I don't know. I think really people who don't have dream, I feel sorry for them, like, because man, you just have to have dreams, right? If you don't have dreams, I think that's the worst thing that can happen to you. What do you think, Bill?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I have to say we're kind of getting close to where we maybe got time for a few more stories which is so unfortunate because I'm looking at this list that you gave me of the
It's
places that
crazy.
you've been, and we've hardly touched anything. But in the respect of time, I don't want to go too long. But
Sure.
can you think of just a few anywhere? It doesn't have to be in any timeline. It just any stories that you want to
Oh
make
yeah.
sure that we talk about before
Yeah,
we.
yeah, because that's how crazy we were with Paul, right? He was afraid of nothing. He looked like Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. I mean, like long
Long
hair,
hair.
like the beard,
Yeah.
green eyes, like and yeah, and he was on that wheelchair, right? And so I think one of the craziest things, there's several, but one that we did, it's like we ride horses in Saint Augustine. It was a cowboy town in when was it? I think it was in Colombia, right in Colombia. And so he was able to ride the horses. He was able to contract his muscle and ride that. And we rode horses for like 1 or 2 days, and he blew me away. I didn't know he could do that, right? And so anyway, so we did that, and it was a good way to visit like the some old tombs and all that, right? And it was a cowboy town, so everybody had cowboy hats, and it was very specific. But the craziest thing is when we went to Thailand. We went to the Golden Triangle. And I remember the guide came and said he was selling his program, right? And so the program was trekking, right? And after trekking, we were doing elephant. We were on top of elephant. And after some rafting with a bamboo rafting. And I
Wow.
was there. I said, Paul, look, I mean, I would love to do that. I said, would you like to do it? And Paul, of course, crazy as he was, yeah, of course I'm going to do it. And so I told the guide, my friend, so he saw the wheelchair. He said, no, 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 we cannot do that. I said, well, if he doesn't go, I'm not going. And so I don't know what was with us, but we were like so determined, I guess. He said, okay, we'll try. And so what he did, of course, the trekking, so we left the wheelchair at the guest house, right? So
Okay.
Paul had no wheelchair. So imagine that, right? Imagine the mental that you have to have, now that I think about it. The mental that you have to have, okay, I don't care, all right, and just left the wheelchair. And so they rented, he paid a little bit more, and there was a motorbike, like a motocross. And so they were able
Okay.
to do the trekking. And so he went to the trekking. Basically, so we went to a trekking. And after he had that, and after he had a mule, and after with a mule, the guy stopped, and I said, Paul, what's going on? He said, oh, I think he wants more money. And so he talked to the guide, and the guide didn't agree. And so we had some people from Germany, we have some other people with us, right? It was kind of a tourist thing, but kind of not hardcore, but like, not like touristy in a way that you put your butt in a car and you just, you have to be more physical, right? And so
Sure.
so he said, no, we don't want to pay the guy. And so he had, I remember, those big military belt. You see those green belts that are very thick that you put around, and they are green. And so
Mm-hmm.
he put his butt on it, and we cut up some bamboo. And with the camera, when to hold the camera. So we unbuttoned that, and this was how we hang him literally. Thanks God he was light. Paul was like, I'm telling you, like Jesus, he was pretty light. And so we carry him like that, and we were taking, me and some other guy, and after some German guy, and we crossed some tiny river, and we went there, and we were by the elephant. So that was the first thing,
Oh
right?
my gosh.
And yeah, I know. And after we went to the elephant, so we were riding the elephant and all that. And so, so you're on top of the elephant. By the way, the skin is very rough. I was like, all red in because I was by the head, right? And Paul was, because I said, can I go by the head? They say, yeah, yeah, yeah. And so, and he was on the things like where you had a seat on top of the elephant. You see what I mean? With some kind of bamboo things, and he was sitting there. And so we went the ride of the elephant. That was really crazy. And after we had to do the rafting. So when we saw the rafting, imagine that was like, it's kind of like the water was going over the bamboo, right?
Oh my gosh.
That's how thin it was. So I said, Paul, are you okay? He said, oh, yeah, no problem. Okay. So he put his butt in the bamboo. It was, I mean, water and things like that. And I remember this specifically because he always, and he didn't talk to me personally about that, but some friend, that report that to me, that he was so thankful that I helped him to live this kind of adventure because he had that adventure spirit, right? But sometimes with a wheelchair, this thing you cannot or cannot do, or people who won't let you do this for safety or lawsuit,
Hmm.
by Thailand, and nobody cares, right? And so yeah, that's one of the story that I wanted to make sure to tell because that was quite an experience, I have to say.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think it's awesome
Yeah.
that you helped to do that for him. That's very cool.
Yeah, and it's before I had my calling, right? And so I always wanted to help people, right? And so even I remember in my job when I was renting boat and there was some foreign people and they were lost, I will always take the time to because yeah, it could happen. It could be me, right? If I need help or something, or I need to know the places to go, the safe places to go, I will always take some time and the time necessary actually and just to tell them, okay, you go there and you do this and all that, because there's such thing that is called reciprocity, right, or karma, right? If you do that, I think
Absolutely.
when you travel, people we act, will do the same for you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I believe in that wholeheartedly.
Yeah,
What you give out, you'll get back. Yeah, I believe that.
yeah,
So, anywhere that you've been more recently, any good stories maybe in the last I
yeah.
don't know, 4 or 5
So
years or
I went to Brazil,
mm, wonderful.
Salvador. So it's okay. So I divorced, and so I've got Maya, my daughter. Right, I met a French woman in America and got married with her. And after I divorced her, and that's where all my business went down, and that's how I created the mind clearing technique, right? Basically, to make a long story short. And I remarried, and now I've got 8 years old and my wife is mixed black and Mexican, right? And so we wanted to go to Brazil. Actually, we went to Brazil when they had that virus, that Zika virus, that they say
Oh
don't go.
yeah.
And my wife was pregnant. I said, no,
Oh my
we go.
gosh.
We don't care because I know some. I'm a natural healing doctor, so I know stuff that the regular folks don't know, right? And so even if there's a virus, we do have essential oil, we do have stuff like that, and so I was confident. And sure enough, we have no problem, right? And so we went to Salvador, and Salvador, she picked up that because it's like they kept the black culture, right? The slave coming from Africa, they kept all their belief and they masked their belief by associated their belief with different scent, right? And so she found, because she organized the trip, I was so busy working, so she organized it,
Hmm.
and she found a French guy that owned a posada, we call posada there, which is a place where kind of a guest house, right, something like that. And so and at that posada, Eric was there. And basically, with him, he went sailing because he was from Brittany, and Brittany in France, they're all sailors. And so he was matching. And he brought her to some healers, because that was my part. I'm a doctor, but I'm a healer at heart. And so we went and did some shamanic stuff that was really interesting. And after the capoeira, right, we talked to a old guy, old master of capoeira, 101, and answer question. And he was translating me French and English because he was speaking some English too, but we were speaking French a lot too. So it's kind of like I had a friend in Brazil, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
it was my culture and we had the same passion about selling, and all that. And so we became very close. I still, follow him on Facebook and things like that. And so, yeah, we went back to my wife when we got married with Reagan, my actual wife. We just went to Mexico, right, to get married. We get married in Mexico, get married we had three kind of wedding,
okay, that's not bad.
Yeah, yeah. So, and after we went like with a family and all that. But in Mexico, we were by ourselves and we loved it. It was by, there's Guadalajara, and after there's that, I don't remember. It's a very touristic area, but we really truly enjoyed it. And so,
Yeah,
yeah, so my wife loves to travel too, of
yeah.
course.
Hey, that's the way to do it. That's the way to do it.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. I
So anyway,
I'm
lots of traveling, and each traveling things, what I will say, if you've got the opportunity to travel, don't miss it because it's not going to happen again.
Yeah,
You have to
absolutely. And don't
jump on the
wait. Don't
opportunity.
wait.
Yeah, don't wait. Exactly.
If you have to put something else aside, do it.
And
Just
also, if you travel somewhere, it's never the same when you go back. Each
yeah,
traveling experiences are different, even if it's the same country and maybe also even in the same location. It's never the same. That's what's so
yeah,
fantastic with traveling.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get to the five questions. And you did not want to know
Okay.
what they are, so I'm going to surprise you with these. So yeah, and none of them are outrageous or anything. So
Oh, that's
we
fine.
we didn't really talk about it during the episode, but I'd like to know, of all of the places, this is going to be tough for you, I think, of all of the places that you've
Yeah.
been in the world, what was your favorite meal? So it can't be at home, but it
Yeah,
doesn't
of
have to be in
course.
a restaurant. Your favorite meal that you can think of
Yeah.
that you've ever had.
That's probably in Mauritius. Some raw fish. It's not sushi. It was some.
Mm,
I remember what kind of fish with a cocktail, and that was really good. It was in a restaurant.
it was in a restaurant.
Yeah, it was in a restaurant. Now,
Yeah.
the most unusual is when I had some antelopes when I was in Black Africa in a family, like a co-worker, if I can say that.
Yeah.
Mm.
Antelope.
In Iraq, I mean, they don't food were not really that impressive. Thailand was really good
Yeah.
for sure. Thai food was amazing. But
Mm-hmm.
really, that I remember that raw fish that I had in Mauritius for some reason stick in my mind, and it was by a bay. It's called Grand Bay, means big bay. And yeah, I remember because I was with Paul and we took a picture of him. And I swear to God, you think that he's like facing a poster, like we've got this poster with a sun going down, like the
Mm-hmm.
sunset, and
Mm-hmm.
you're in front of a
Yeah.
poster and you take a picture, and it's exactly, you say, man, that's crazy, it was real.
But it
And
was
so
real.
maybe
Yeah.
that's why I remember that meal. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's the thing. Sometimes it's not. Yeah, I'm sure the food was fantastic, but sometimes it's the situation and the company,
Yes.
and that
The
makes it even
context.
better. So yeah, that's why I like that question,
Yes.
because I like to hear
Yes.
those answers.
That's
So
a
this
good
is
good
this is
question.
the unusual question of the five. So
Uh huh.
this one, I really enjoy the answers of this too. So, of all of the places in the world that you have been, and again, we didn't even touch on half of them. Of all the
Mm.
places you've been, if I was to tell you, and price is no object, I'll pay for everything. Just go and enjoy yourself. Where do you, if I offered you a free trip somewhere that you've already been, you're good. You don't want to go back, or you don't need to go back. So where would you not
Oh,
go
I don't
again?
need to go back. So the place that I don't want to go back, Iraq.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good answer.
Because first of all, maybe all the suffering along that, it was working, but also um, it was during war, so the energy were not the best. Maybe that's all that context. Nothing against Iraqi people, but the context of that and all the things that happened to me. Although it was a life-changing thing for me because when you think about it, after Iraq, it changed my job, right? And
Yeah.
went and
Yeah.
got my boat and got, yeah, and started the boat rental business. So it was a life-changing thing. But I guess, it's like when you give birth, you suffer. From what I've heard.
Yeah. I've heard that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Breaking the femur bone is about the same painful as childbirth, I've heard. Yeah. Yeah.
Especially all the things that linger. I didn't know what was wrong with me, and I was very healthy, so I never experienced having like not being able to sleep, and it happened for weeks. And it get into your
Yeah.
system, man. When you cannot sleep. I mean, I've read some sleep study. People can become they've got hallucination and stuff like that. It can be really crazy.
Oh, yeah.
I'm glad I had that experience, though, but I wouldn't go back.
Yeah. No, I get it. I get it. Absolutely. Makes a lot of sense. So, okay, let's flip that 180 degrees. Of all the places
Yes.
that you've been in the world, where do you absolutely have to go back?
So the way I see that question, again, a very good question. The way I see that, it's like for me, what place I would like my family to know that I've been there, right?
Okay.
That's the way I see it. That's the way I will answer that question.
Okay.
And definitely Mauritius, my first trip. because to see all those people getting along like this, and although they've got different religion, different skin color, and all that, and that energy at the island at the time, I know it's probably going to be totally different, but they were so friendly, man. You just feel like at home, and I met two of my biggest friends there, the German guy and Paul, and it was a mixture of like tourism and real life, from what happened. Because I even didn't tell you, my landlord was a cop and he got killed in a drug stuff. I mean, there was some crazy stuff that happened in Mauritius. But even though there was like some things, like I went to his, he was Muslim, so they burned him. But, I just went to his funeral and all that. But
Wow.
I don't know, maybe it was because my first big trip, and I met so many amazing people that stay in my life, and it's so beautiful. I mean, it's stunning beauty, really. And again, it was a mixture of real life, that's some tragedy and some things that happened that make it like so exceptional and so unusual. And yeah, I will go back. I will go back.
Excellent. Very good. I'm gonna have to put that on a list for myself to check out as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So, okay. So now, where in the world that you haven't been do you have to go?
Bucket list.
Maybe
Oh
not
boy.
necessarily the bucket list, because for me the bucket list is these are the places that I definitely want to go. But if you could just pick one that I have to get there, what would that be?
Hmm. Man, that's a tough question. It's just there's some location that comes to mind, but let me look at the map here in my head.
And maybe there's not a
Yeah,
one place that you absolutely have to go.
yeah. No, I think there's one. Well, there's two places. I'm going to cheat a little bit. One
That's
is
fine.
Morocco. Morocco.
Hmm.
Yeah, always been intrigued. My parents went to Morocco, and I don't know. I love that culture. I love the beauty of. I had, I was in France. I was raised in a bad neighborhood, and there was some people from Arabic countries quite a bit, and so I was exposed to all the religion. I had some Jewish friends, I had some Muslim friends, some Christian friends, of course, and people from Morocco. And the way they described their country was really attractive, and my parents told me that was good. And the other one is like basically something like Bora Bora, Tahiti, something like that. Just the mystic of it, yeah. I love Island. I've got a tattoo on my right shoulder. It's like a desert island with a palm tree, a
Hmm.
tiny island with a palm tree on top of that. I don't know if you can call that an island actually. And some beautiful sunset and some birds at the horizon. So I guess that's to me the symbolism of traveling, I guess.
Yeah.
And so yeah, definitely Bora Bora or something like that, or an island nearby when it's not too touristy. Really will do it.
Okay. Excellent. And the final question that I have is, where are you going? Do you have anything that's already planned? Anything coming up?
Man, I'm so focused on what I'm doing now, so it's going to have to be with work, right? And so, and now with all the way of communication, like via Zoom, via all those things, that become more. But wherever, if you have to, go back to France for a conference, go back to go to Canada, go to Mexico, I will go. I mean, and my wife will come, my kid will come with me for sure, guaranteed. So the way that because I thought about it, of course, and I said, well, the way that I will love to work is like by doing some training in different locations. And because that's the only thing I didn't travel as a teacher, right? And doctor means
Hmm.
teacher, by the way, and I created all those techniques. So I would love to travel as a teacher. And the destination, of course, it's important. I'm not a guy that's going to go to Alaska. I'm sorry. My
Okay.
wife
Okay.
wouldn't follow me, but I love the sun. I think the energy of the sun is like so crazy good. There's something that with the sun that just touch my soul and touch other people's soul, because when people are outside, like you said, it's more the way I am, right? And so I'm more outgoing and things like that. So I like to be outside. I love the sun and all that thing. So of course I will prefer some place like that. But that will be to teach, and that has to be continued.
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent. That's excellent. I really
Thank you.
enjoyed this time, Ellen. I It went way
Me
too
too, Bill.
fast. Way too
I
fast.
know. There's so much more to
So
say. God.
yeah. So I mean, let's do it again sometime.
Sure, why
And we
not?
can touch on some more of the stories, and maybe we'll get through another quarter of the stories that you
Yeah,
have.
because there's traveling that, to be an immigrant is you still traveling, right?
Yeah.
You see,
Yeah.
so it's another way. So I experienced that too. I've been in the US since 1993. And so, there's, because now you are in between culture, right? You've got the French culture and Spanish when I was in France. And I've got now the American culture. So when I go back to France, I'm like, it's awkward because there's things that I see, I say, that's crazy how French people are. And when I'm in the US, and especially when I see people driving, I say, what the heck?
Yeah.
Exactly. So anyway, so you just in between, which is actually very comfortable for me because I always saw myself more as a humanist in a way, and that I don't belong, But my resume or my who I am. I'm not a French guy. I'm not a Spanish guy. I'm not an American. I'm not. No, I'm like even when I used to ride motorbikes, I own horses and stuff. I never been also with a sailing people. I never been okay, I'm going to stay only on that field, right? And I'm
Hmm.
going to socialize with only people who sell. No,
Hmm.
this it's only a mean. It's not who I am, right? And so when I had a motorbike, I was not people who tell me, oh yeah, you can come. There's lots of motorbike and we do things and that. Maybe I will go once and that's it. Because for me, it's just only a mean to that I enjoy, like traveling on a motorbike, like traveling sailing, traveling, having a car, traveling whatever, right? But I never belong to a group in a way. I'm always being curious about okay, what's out there, and I never been able to. You see what I mean? To
Yeah.
stuck in one,
You're always looking to grow and expand
I
your
guess.
experiences.
Yeah,
Yeah, I get it.
yeah,
Yeah, I get it.
and so yeah,
So again, this was awesome. I really could keep talking for another hour, hour and a half, but
yeah, me too.
we will. We'll do it again, and we'll fill another hour and a half. I'm sure
Sure,
very easily.
yes.
Anything you
Well, thank
anything?
you.
Yeah,
Yeah, what I
you're
want to
welcome.
tell you, thank you for bringing me back because all those, memory that come back by talking to you, it's with great pleasure. It's not nostalgia because I'm always moving forward, but it's good to acknowledge our friendship, think about people you have met during your traveling because traveling, of course, it's about site and location, but for me, it's about people and who you meet and and and, um, and how you interact with people and the difference of culture and putting yourself in danger in a way, not necessarily physical danger, but in a way that you are more vulnerable, right? And so you
Hmm.
learn a lot about yourself when you do that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say you're welcome. That's part of the reason why I do this is because I think it does exactly what you said. It can spur memories that you maybe had
Yeah,
forgotten, but also
yeah,
I just think that the stories that people have are so important because you've lived through some really incredible things, and if the world doesn't know that, yeah, it's just for you. I get that, but let's let the world be touched by some of these stories too. So yeah, so I appreciate you sharing.
yeah. But like you say, sharing is everything, right? I
Hmm.
mean, it's like I remember reading books about people who were like, and especially French people are pretty extreme with sailing, and some of the sport. And they were sailing around the world solo, right, by themselves. And they said the hardest things that they have to do is when they see a beautiful things and they couldn't share it
Yeah,
with anybody.
yeah.
You see, so we are social being, and so, like you say, sharing is so important. Sharing story and sharing some experience, and some point of view and things like that can help people. Yes, of course, I believe so.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, thank you for doing what you're doing.
Thank you for saying that, and you're very welcome. And we'll do it again. So thank you,
No
Alan,
problem.
and good luck in everything you have going on, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you. Hey, Bill, take care and bless yourself and your family.
And there's another episode of the Where Have You Been podcast in the books. Thank you so much for listening today. It was another great guest with some great stories, as always, and I hope that you will support all of the guests by checking out the show notes and going to their web pages, seeing any socials and projects that they may have going on. And please, again, I'll ask as always to like, subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. It really does help to allow the podcast to grow and reach more people, and I appreciate you for doing that. Also, if you haven't done so, check out the website, whybpodcast.com, where you can find blog posts. If you'd like to be a guest, please register to be a guest on the site, and check out the merch page. There's some really cool stuff if you're interested in representing the pod, along with some other cool travel items and apparel that I'm working on every day as well. Join me again next week for another great guest with more incredible stories. New episodes drop every Sunday just after midnight Eastern Time. Until then, thank you for being here, and have a great day.